If you haven't watched the first part of this video, please watch it now. This video contains spoilers for the second book in the official Escape from Tarkov trilogy. Under the guise of the Predator's messenger, Dennis relays to Gavrish's gang that Makar's old base now belongs to him. He may also have the massive amount of loot that they've stored in a makeshift warehouse inside the base, with one exception. Dennis can come by from time to time and take a few things, and whenever the Predator needs fighters from Gavrish's scav gang, they must oblige. Gavrish agrees. Dennis also finds a hidden safe in Makar's old quarters, but has no way of opening it. In the meantime, Dennis rests for several days, and also splits up loot from his hideout and disperses it among various hidden stashes all over the place, so as not to have all of his eggs in one basket. Dennis finds a safecracker and revisits Makar's safe. The safecracker mentions that TerraGroup purchased a large number of these types of safes, and that they can withstand oxyacetylene torches and various other brute force tactics, but they can be cracked. It takes about an hour, but the guy cracks the safe, and inside Dennis finds all kinds of interesting things. A box with various gold trinkets, stacks of US dollars and euros, 5 flash drives, some fresh blanks, and a folder with all kinds of intelligence with drawings and schematics. Later on, he reads this from the documents. In order to minimize the potential negative consequences of an emergency evacuation, it is proposed that a number of special storage facilities be established and equipped within a period of 3 months. Provide autonomous power for each special facility, for which work and equipment will be coordinated with Department 3K. In order to prevent unauthorized access, several layers of protection must be put in place. In connection to this, inlet locks require retrofitting with autonomous control and identification systems. Department 4C must calculate the equipment requirements for a period of instability up to 3 years. Division B has to select and instruct a number of staff members of USEC operators and authorized representatives of the technical office, in accordance with the attached list. As Dennis scours through this intelligence and some flash drives, he finds various TerraGroup and USEC personnel had specific instructions to unlock various areas or activate something, but the key holders never knew what it actually was. After some time, he learns that the flash drives not only allow you to use a keycard reader, but then a keycard is needed for the actual door for a TerraGroup storage facility. Everything about these flash drives and keycards is heavily encrypted and has multiple layers of secrecy. For example, in order to visit one of these TerraGroup storage facilities, the flash key might be issued by one branch of TerraGroup or USEC, but the keycard would be issued by another, a form of two-factor authentication. After all of his research, he finds that he has a flash key for storage facility number 9C, and he tells himself that he needs to find a keycard in the location of this TerraGroup facility. Dennis then finally meets Prapor face to face, an arrangement that the original dealer from the first book set up. They get to know each other a little bit, and Prapor demands to meet with the Predator face to face, but Dennis assures him that this is not possible. Later on, Dennis remarks that the city is really beginning to deteriorate. Trash is piling up, and there are more and more gunfights. Everything is just a mess. While traveling, he witnesses a shootout between some USEC and a few scavs. He saves one of the scavs, but the scav was already mortally wounded. He tells Dennis that there's an extremely valuable item that they were hauling before getting into the gunfight, and Dennis finds it, along with looting the bodies of several very geared dead USEC. It's a large case that contains all kinds of hard drives from various areas around Tarkov, such as the port facilities, polychem factories, and so on. He has no idea what it's for, but he starts to haul it away. Night falls, and Dennis witnesses a large squad of USEC enter a nearby apartment building. A massive firefight ensues, and for some reason, Dennis decides to aid the USEC. Turns out they got into a fight with a huge group of cultists, and after a very lengthy firefight, he ends up befriending the USEC in charge. The firefight rages, and the USEC radio for aid that won't arrive until morning. The building they are in is severely damaged during the firefight, until finally, a cultist requests that they talk without weapons, as both sides have suffered significant losses. The cultist reveals that he is a priest, and that although they do not have a church, they are witnesses to the coming, an event that will bring forth the true masters of the world. The cultist priest then explains that those who have witnessed the blue flame are blessed, and Dennis realizes that this was the EMP that rendered most electronics useless within Tarkov. The priest attempts to convert Dennis and the USECs into joining them and becoming soldiers for them. To show how strong their devotion is, the priest summons one of his soldiers to his side, produces his cultist knife, and fatally stabs the cultist soldier, who does not show a single sign of pain or discomfort as he dies. Dennis buys a little time by saying that he needs to spread the gospel to the injured with them, and the priest informs them if they haven't reached a decision within 20 minutes and come out of the building, they will level it with an RPG. They wait and hope for the USEC backup to arrive, but after 20 minutes, the cultists open fire on the building with RPGs. Unafraid to die, the cultist shooting the RPG is simply standing out in the open on the street, and Dennis is able to shoot and wound the cultist, who drops his RPG and runs away. Then a huge squad of USEC arrive and secure the area and relieve Dennis and his trapped USEC friends. Taken back to a small USEC outpost, Dennis is met by the commander of the small detachment, who attempts to interrogate him on his past. Knowing that revealing that he was once part of TerraGroup is a bad idea, he lies and tells them that he worked for the Predator long before things went to hell in Tarkov. They buy it, and when Dennis asks if they have any cultists as prisoners, they do, but they are unresponsive. Dennis asks if he can speak with them, and upon entering the holding cell, Dennis pretends that he is a cultist priest and displays one of his knives. The captured cultist believes him, and then tells them everything about their operation and beliefs. Unfortunately, the book doesn't tell us those details, but only that it shocks and scares Dennis and the USEC man. The book switches to the point of view of the USEC commander, who is then visited by a mysterious USEC counterintelligence officer. The USEC commander thinks to himself that every time he sees this guy, he's too confident, almost like he knows way more about what's going on than he reveals. The counterintelligence officer, by the name Mark Forbett, is debriefed by the USEC commander on what had taken place with the battle against the cultists, and the unlikely meeting and alliance with Dennis. The counterintelligence officer perks up at the mention of the cultists, and seems almost giddy about hearing how well they perform in combat, remarking once that they seem like a real highly trained assault team. Later on, Forbett instructs the USEC commander to find out more about Dennis and other groups in the area, and that he already has extensive intelligence on various dealers and groups in the area, including Prapor and the Hood, which may possibly be Fence. Over the next several chapters, Dennis learns that one of the largest and most powerful scav gangs is upset about the earlier defeat of Makar, and demands that his former base be given back to the Foma gang. Dennis proceeds to have a lengthy string of skirmishes with this gang, ultimately ending in him killing their leader and further spreading the legend of the Predator, which is now becoming a feared name across all of Tarkov. While inside the lair of the Foma gang, he frees a prisoner of theirs, Oleg. They realize that Oleg seems useless. He possesses almost zero combat or survival skills, and they're about to kill him on their way back to their respective bases, when Dennis decides to talk to him first to learn more about him. Turns out he worked for TerraGroup, and reveals that he's been inside one of the numerous TerraGroup special facilities where they stored food, weapons, medicine, and various kinds of technology. He was locked in there by USEC on the onset of the Tarkov calamity, and these facilities are guarded by automated gun turrets. Dennis decides to spare the man to learn more about him. While trying to leave the area, Dennis and Oleg are ambushed by a squad of heavily geared bear PMCs. The bear fight ferociously. Dennis manages to shoot one several times, but the rounds of his pistol and SMG have little effect on the heavy armor, so Dennis decides to go for the legs. This also has little effect, as he learns later that the bear PMCs apparently used morphine combat syringes before engaging in battle, and one bear viciously rushed him, even with a severely injured leg. Dennis and Oleg barely managed to defeat the PMCs, and Dennis figures that the bears were following Oleg somehow. Dennis radios for friendly scav support, as he is severely injured. He is escorted back to safety and spends almost a week recovering in his hideout. After recovering enough to resume activity, Dennis provides Oleg with a laptop, and they work together to decipher the collection of TerraGroup keycards and flash drives that they have on hand. After some days, they find that they have a flash drive and a keycard that will allow them to enter the TerraGroup facility that Oleg was originally stationed at. After nearly hesitating and not going there at all, as if they did something wrong and the auto turrets did not turn off, they would be killed upon entering. They get their things together and head off towards the secret TerraGroup facility. After finding the facility, which is disguised as a municipal pumping facility and made entirely out of concrete, Dennis carefully uses the series of keycards and flash drives to gain access to the bunker without being targeted by the auto turrets, which which have obviously made victims out of a few people who ventured too close to it. Upon entering, they find a relatively small quarters complete with an armory, supplies, kitchen, and bunks. The facility has its own water, electricity, and air filtration supply. Upon gaining access to the lower level of the facility, they find that this bunker's purpose was primarily for resupplying USEC vehicles. There are a multitude of replacement parts from engine blocks to bumpers, tools, and workbenches. Dennis figures that each TerraGroup bunker serves its own function, but he isn't sure why they exist in the first place. While exploring, they find some kind of new contraption that TerraGroup must have invented, a mobile sentry robot that has an integrated M249 machine gun and a whole suite of sensors. They move the sentry to the roof of the bunker, calibrate it, and now protects the bunker in addition to the auto turrets for a full 360-degree coverage. Seeing as this bunker is not only extremely secure, but also has some modern luxuries like showers, he moves his primary hideout to this bunker, while keeping his old hideout as backup. Dennis performs some additional tasks to win over favors with various scav gang leaders and to establish a sort of equilibrium of power among the local scav gangs. Then, he meets once again with the drug dealer near the port, who is now normally called the Hood. After speaking with a few others who have read this book, this may not actually be Skier, but it's really Fence. Fence has a keen interest in the TerraGroup property and flash drives, and after making an arrangement to exchange some hard drives, Dennis agrees to facilitate the transfer of a large quantity of tactical gear and equipment that is near the port area. Also, the UN is finally mentioned for the first time. Dennis remarks that they have walled themselves into the corner of the port area and shoot at almost everything and anything. Dennis also remarks that pretty much every single scav group in Tarkov, as well as every traitor, is familiar with Fence, and that they don't really like him, but they would also never dare to cross him. Fence arranges for a meeting between a criminal boss from the port area and Dennis at Fence's headquarters. While waiting for the meeting to occur, Dennis muses about Fence's existence. Wondering how a drug dealer could have operated for such a long time right under TerraGroup's nose, Dennis admits that TerraGroup, while not being in the business of drug dealing, did create a substance known as blue ice, which was sold officially as fertilizer. But there were rumors that it was something completely different and that TerraGroup was operating in a clear gray area and manufacturing the stuff on an industrial scale. Unfortunately, at least in this book, this is the first and last time he mentions blue ice. Through several tense conversations, Dennis convinces the port boss to allow him to take 2 TerraGroup cargo containers out of the port area, while the port boss can also have 2. These cargo containers were rigged with explosives and contained all kinds of useful military equipment and gadgets. And while successfully extracting the loot, one of Fence's representatives notifies Dennis that cultist attacks are increasing in the area and that they are highly interested in finding or killing Dennis, citing the fact that he has now killed 2 of their priests. Dennis hurriedly loads up the TerraGroup stolen goods in a convoy of vehicles destined for various traders and leaves the area. The book cuts to a big meeting at the same USEC base that Dennis went to after the big firefight with the cultists. And once again, the USEC Counterintelligence officer is meeting with the USEC commander there. But he has also brought along John Dirk, who apparently is a commander for the USEC Special Operations in Tarkov. They know exactly who Dennis is, and question the local USEC commander and his past dealings with Dennis. They learn that Dennis was once part of something called Operation Tunnel, and become nervous that Dennis might have been a Russian counterintelligence agent, exposing this Operation Tunnel to the Russians. It cuts back to Dennis, who is laying on the rooftop of a building, sunbathing. He reflects on how many close encounters and battles he has survived, and wonders how many more are yet to come. And then the book ends. And now for my thoughts. First, I'll start off with the book itself and its writing style and translation. I think that this book is far more entertaining and well written than the first. Also, it appears that this book may have been translated by a different person than the first book, as it completely lacked the abundance of British humor that the first book had. That being said, there were times where it seemed that the translator may have been frustrated or exhausted and just threw a few sentences or paragraphs into Google Translate. There were several times where several words or entire sentences were jumbled together or had very odd punctuation, but overall it was easier to follow than the first book. I still feel that the author could have expressed more character development out of Dennis. There are a handful of times where Dennis reflects on his old life, but they are few and far between. And it would have added more complexity, emotion, and drama if Dennis really struggled with the sheer amount of death he brought onto others. And while Dennis can seem like a Mary Sue most of the time, overcoming nearly every obstacle, He does suffer wounds in this book and is tortured fairly brutally while in Makar's captivity, which made him seem a little less like a superhero and more human. As for the story itself, we learn a lot about the cult and TerraGroup. TerraGroup has all kinds of storage facilities that they set up well in advance, and the cult seems extremely talented in combat, but why? Also, USEC is not as unified and single-minded as I previously thought. There seems to be an upper and lower caste members within USEC, and the Counterintelligence officer seems to know quite a lot about the cult, and seems almost giddy about how well they perform in combat. Very suspicious. It was great to see some interaction with some of the dealers we know and love, and while I would consider some characters in the book to be scab bosses, like Makar and the port crime boss, we haven't seen any mention of scab bosses that are actually in the game yet. Maybe that will be in the third book. And I really wish they would have elaborated on Blue Ice a little bit more. Next up is the third and final book, and hopefully we learn even more about the cult, USEC, TerraGroup, and other characters from Tarkov. While these videos and reviews are a labor of love, if you would like to help support the channel, please consider subscribing if you haven't already. And if you'd like to go above and beyond, consider becoming one of our patrons. A link is in the description. I need to get to reading the final book in this series, and I'll have a review for that book ready soon, but until then, I'm Jeff with EUL Gaming. Good luck out there.